I knew from when I was 6 years old I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be in quote-unquote show business. I never let no one tell me I couldn't do it. So I just put that in the back of my mind, and then I just said once I get to the point where I can do my own thing, I was going to do my own thing.
Ralph Lauren, it is so waspy to have that singular one person, Tyson, turn the 360 degrees around, and all of a sudden there was nothing to be said.
It used to be like all light-skinned guys with curly hair, and now it's like dark-skinned guys with bald heads. So now it's cool to be of a darker complexion.
What Tyson has done for aspiring black male models is that he has shown them that they could be bigger or as big as any white counterpart.
There's never been one of him before, and there hasn't been another one yet. So that's a testament to how hard he works.
Hold top, mama. Up top. Tyson, right over here. Your shoulder. Tyson, stay overhead.
Okay, right here.
My name is Tyson Beckford. What it is to be a king is one who takes care of his kingdom.
Tyson Beckford is a name almost synonymous with the male fashion industry today. But his early upbringing in Rochester and the Bronx in New York City was anything but glamorous. It was surely American, but it was a far cry from the Ralph Lauren American dream that Tyson would later come to represent. More than just breaking a few glass ceilings in his rise, Tyson often had to fight for his life. He's noted as the first Jamaican-American male supermodel who opened the door for other men of color to enter into the industry.
Learn's really hard about it. I guess trying to keep your head out of the clouds, I guess.
Yeah.
From everyone telling you, oh, you're a supermodel, you're a star, and you're like, no, I'm not.
Tyson was born in the Bronx in New York City, December 19, 1970. He was born to a Jamaican-Panamanian Dutch mother, Hilary Dixon Hall, and Lloyd Beckford, a father of Chinese, Jamaican, Spanish, and Portuguese descent. Even though most people consider him a black man, he is one full quarter Chinese. When Tyson was still a small child, his mother Hilary took the family back to Jamaica. Where they lived for 7 years. It connected a young Tyson to his Jamaican roots before they returned to New York City.
What it was like for me growing up, it was kind of, my childhood was, it had its, like any other kid, had its ups and downs. And it really was, it was difficult at times, and then it was amazing at times. So for me, I was born in the Bronx, New York. At 6 months old, I then went back to Jamaica with my mom. And I grew up in Jamaica till I was about 7 years old, and then I came back to the US. And for me, leaving Jamaica was like a culture shock. Like I thought it was the end of the world. I mean, here I am running around in Jamaica, never knew that I was a US citizen by birth. You know, I always felt like Jamaica was my home. I didn't know anywhere else. So, you know, I'm running around shirtless, you know, barefoot, and, you know, just enjoying my island and, you know, my friends. And I grew up with, you know, I had all kinds of different friends. I had white friends, I had Indian friends, I had Chinese friends. I mean, and some of those Chinese friends were relatives, you know? So it was like, I grew up in this vast world of nature, island life, and just great food and great music. No part of me knew anything about the US. I don't remember ever seeing anything about the United States on TV or in magazines or books, because all I knew was Jamaica. So my childhood was amazing growing up in Jamaica. But I think where it got difficult was when I came to the States and I had a heavy Jamaican accent, which is what we call patois. So when I pronounced certain things, it was different for my teachers and classmates to understand what I was saying, because as the Americans told me, I was fresh off the boat. But realistically, I was fresh off first class airlines. So I wasn't like, you know, some of the other people who had come into the US. You know, I came in classy and on a plane. So for me, when the term was hit to me with fresh off the boat, I didn't understand. They would say, "You're fresh off the boat." And I said, "No, I came on the plane."
Tyson's early years were split between the Bronx and Rochester in upstate New York, where he lived with his mother and stepfather. Tyson says this was the most difficult and dangerous part of his young life.
For me, it was much confusion growing up in the States. I mean, if I had grown up in any other country, it would have been probably easier for me. Like growing up in Australia or England or, you know, or Asia, it would have been way easier than growing up in the States, because during that time, there was an influx of immigrants coming into America. And I think a lot of the Americans put up a racial wall, they put up a stereotypical wall, and, you know, I was called all kinds of names when I first got here. I was called a coconut, you know, I was called, you know, all kinds of names that I would never even, you know, want to repeat. The Black community, I think, was just as harsh as the white community was to us. As my parents would tell me, we fled Jamaica because of the political issues that were going on and the fact that, you know, my parents wanted a better life for us. And it just was, you know, it was a culture shock for us, because here we are thrown into these schools with these people who are not like us, and it's cold. It's not like an island. I have to wear shoes, which was another thing that I did not like to do. I did not like to wear shoes. It was quite the shock. And then, you know, I got held back one year in the American school system only because my communication skills with the teachers weren't good. The curriculum wasn't my problem. It was just they wanted me to lose my accent within the time that I was there in America, and they sent me to speech therapists and all these other people, which, you know, was, I mean, when you look back at it now, it's, you know, someone could probably say it was racial injustice. It steals someone's culture and the way that they spoke, the way that they harshly put me through vigorous classes with the speech therapist just to get rid of my accent, which was, to me, was natural. So I had to learn to have the American accent. And then when I got home, my parents would be like, "Why are you talking like that?" You know, so it was like, you know, I'm just trying to adjust. I'm trying to be a part of the world and blend in and, you know, not stand out. But we as a family stood out, because here I have this huge, unkept, like almost early Bob Marley afro, which was ready to, you know, I wanted dreadlocks. I wanted to be a Rasta man, because, you know, growing up in Jamaica, we thought Rastas was the coolest thing.
Rochester is situated on the banks of Lake Ontario and has one of the highest crime rates in America, compared to all communities of all sizes from the smallest town to the largest city. Before slavery was abolished in the United States in 1865, Rochester was also one of the last stops of the famous Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was a network of people who helped fugitive slaves gain their freedom. Rochester and other towns in Monroe County were one of the last stops on the railroad before crossing the borders into Canada.
For me, what was the worst part of growing up? I would say it had to be Rochester. Like, you know, we already knew what New York City was about, but here you have Rochester who has, you know, it's the suburbs. It's upstate New York. You wouldn't think it's dangerous, but it was dangerous because you had one side of town that had some kids called the Genesee Street Boys, who were called the G Boys, and you know, I lived in between them and the guys from the west side of town. So it was constant, you know, it was constant killing. You could hear gunshots, you know. Even in New York City, we grew up hearing gunshots, but we knew a lot of those gunshots were just kids shooting guns off the roof, or more so just being, you know, knuckleheads. Whereas any shooting going on in Rochester, you know, they were killing. They weren't shooting for target practice or off the roof. They were shooting at you. And I remember, you know, constantly, it must have been at least 3-4 drive-bys a day. You could be in the wrong neighborhood, the wrong time, and, you know, like South Central, you could be wearing red and be in a blue neighborhood and get killed, you know? And that's the same way it was there in Rochester. It was very, very violent. And the problem is the police are shit. You know, they just believe in trying to be a military state and treat people like they're, you know, they're in a camp, you know, and it just doesn't work that way. I had mixed emotions, mixed feelings about growing up there. There was times that the law enforcement of Rochester were downright racist, and now in the recent news, they have really been showing that they have a racial injustice problem there in Rochester, which is a place that I don't care how much money you give me or how many requests they ask me to come back to that place. I'll never go back there, because for me, that was hell in New York State. If hell was a place, it would be called Rochester. So growing up as a teenager in Rochester was rough. I mean, I rode skateboards and I got harassed by the police all the time. I mean, I got chased by the Rochester PD all the time for no apparent reason. I'm just walking down the street, they turn on their lights and just chase me for no reason.
They can be seen. Do not fight with the police. Do not run from the police. Do not have any type of weapons. Make sure you protect yourself, de-escalate situation, and understand that police have guns and they will use them against you, and they will lie and make false statements.
I'd get off the bus and immediately be a foot chase. I felt like, you know, between the gangs that were in those neighborhoods in Rochester and the police, I felt like I was up against the gangs, I was up against the police, I was up against any neighbor's dog whose fence I had to hop and run through. It was a nightmare for me growing up there, you know. I would have rather grown up in South Central LA amongst the gangbangers than to grow up in that place. I watched a lot of my classmates and neighbors and kids I grew up with get killed and arrested and beaten by the police, you know. And, you know, there's hopefully the U.S. Attorney General will take some time and go up there and look back at the the shitstorm, the hell that's going on up in that place.
Rochester's neighborhoods conjured up too many stereotypes to count. You got hipster areas, preppy places, neighborhoods where college kids thrive, and of course ghettos. It seems as if there was a neighborhood for everyone in Rochester. Everyone except a young multiracial kid called Tyson.
You got to understand, I'm coming from an island where our credo is we are many, but we all get along, you know? It doesn't matter. Some of my best friends were white in Jamaica and Chinese and Indian from India, and we never had a problem. We never judged each other on what color our skin was or what food our people ate, you know? It was cultural. It was, you know, we got to share in those different cultures. We got to eat Chinese, Jamaican food, Indian curry, and, you know, those things were amazing to us growing up. Yeah. Then we came here to the States and we seen how separated everyone in America is. And it was just like, okay, you blacks belong over there. You Indians belong over there. You Asians and Chinese belong there. So for me, being of such biracial parentage and ethnicity, I didn't know why people were mistreating the Chinese. There's my grandmother's 100% Chinese. So how do I mistreat her? That's my grandmother. You know, I remember walking around in New York City with my grandmother, you know, and then my friends seeing me later and saying, hey, why are you always with that Chinese lady? Why are you always pushing that Chinese lady's groceries and carrying bags for her? I was like, yo, that's my grandmother. What do you mean? They're like, you have a Chinese grandmother? And I was like, yeah. I mean, it's obvious in my eyes growing up as a kid that I was part Chinese, but America hadn't seen a black Chinese man before.
When Tyson was in his teens, his family moved back to the Bronx in New York City.
In the 1970s, the South Bronx was literally on fire.
Poverty had reached as far north as Fordham Road. The Bronx experienced some of its worst instances of urban decay, with the loss of 300,000 residences and the destruction of entire city blocks worth of buildings. The 70s was an era where organized crime and street gangs ruled. Drugs were everywhere and violence was easy to find.
So it was tough for me. So I got into a lot of fights. I got picked on. I got bullied. And then I learned how to fight back. I realized what I had as far as my inner powers, my skills, what was great. I was super strong, like physically super strong, and I could take on someone twice my size. So I started counting the amount of fights I got into. From the time that I had walked through customs at 6 years old to this age now, I've been in 38 street fights, and I've never lost one. I've been stabbed once. I've had a chair broken over my back. I had a table broken over my back. I've been jumped by 3 people at one time. And I remember one time I got in a fight in the neighborhood and I got jumped by 2 white kids. And my brother was there and I looked to him for help and he was shaking his head like, no, you lose this fight, I'm gonna beat your ass. I grew up having to fight my whole life.
Tyson admits he lived a wild life when he was young, sometimes running with a dangerous crowd and often courting trouble.
I went to college part-time.
My first job was at McDonald's. I didn't start doing this overnight. Actually, my first job was a paper route. My second job was McDonald's. I was a cook. I was a damn good one.
But I really had bigger dreams. As a kid, I thought about getting in the entertainment industry from when I was 6 years old. I used to rap, I used to break dance, but then I decided I wanted to be a music producer.
Playing by the rules, I come up hard, babe.
So all the kids in my neighborhood were in gangs. Most of them are dead or locked up right now. For me, I vowed never to go back to that.
I come up hard, but that's
One fateful day in the Bronx, Tyson's older brother was murdered in street-related matters. This day would shatter Tyson's life, but also give him a lifelong source of strength and determination to become the person that his older brother believed he was destined to be. Only days before his murder, Tyson's brother told him to leave the street life, that Tyson's true destiny was in entertainment. Tyson took these final words of advice and made a promise to honor his brother's wishes.
Got real ill back in the day. My brother was gunned down in the streets. Dealt with that whole gun and drug issues and and the gangbang, and just I don't want to do that no more, man. It's just I'm not gonna fight over a color anymore. That's just stupid. We're ignorant, we're dumb little kids, and it caused me to lose my brother to the streets. So that kind of woke me up to say, there's something better than this. Because before my brother got killed, one of the things he did say, he was like, yo man, you're not built for the street stuff. It's not for you anymore. You're far more talented than the streets. So it just woke my eye up, and when because he got killed a week later after he had told me that, and his dream was just you get out of the street, just become famous, and do something, let people see your talents and your skill.
For over 25 years, he has been lusted after as one of the world's most beautiful people. He's fronted a myriad of international fashion campaigns. At 50, he's single again, the celebrity face of Chippendales, an active artist, producer, presenter, and entrepreneur. For 50, Tyson is remarkably well preserved, in an amazing shape, with no signs of slowing down. So he must really love fashion, right? It's all BS, he says.
You have to recognize the fashion industry is ugly, mean, and shallow. One day you're invisible, the next day you're fabulous.
Seeing Tyson's buff body on billboards, sitting front row at the Victoria's Secret show, walking the red carpet, or driving a sports car, one could be excused for thinking things were always like this for Tyson, but nothing could be further from the truth. It's hard to believe, but as a child, Tyson, with his African, Jamaican, Panamanian, and Chinese ancestry, was once skinny with gap teeth.
America hadn't seen a black Chinese man before. So I got all kind of names called. They call me Black Chinaman, Chinese, Ching Chong Chinese, like you named it. I was called everything. But, growing up as a kid, I didn't know anything different. I didn't know that I was, I knew I was different, but I didn't know that it was a problem.
So in my late teens, I had a serious growth spurt. I went from 5'8" to 6'2". I went from 145 pounds to 185 pounds. All this was done by lifting weights and playing American football. I was soon picked up by Ralph Lauren to be the face of the brand, which changed my life forever.
We have a tie this evening. Anybody knows who thinks should get best body? Tyson! Well, you're absolutely right.
My destiny in entertainment was when I had just got to America, and there was this TV show called Different Strokes, starring Todd Bridges and this little actor kid by the name of Gary Coleman. And I saw these guys on TV, and I felt like, wait a minute, I got an afro, I'm the same skin color, this kid is he's on TV, I can do that too. I remember in the 90s, when rap music was big, I used to break dance before. And I used to think breakdancing was what was going to take me to fame and stardom. And then I met this guy by the name of Eric, and he was an editor for a magazine called The Source Hip Hop Magazine. So that's where I got my first fashion insight, and that was my first fashion layout, my first editorial shoot. It was probably about 4 pages or so. And he had a crew of guys that he hung out with, and he too was a musician and a rapper. So he introduced me to this guy by the name of Vincent. And this guy, you know, back then he was just known as Vinny, and he was a bouncer at different clubs. So he was kind of, you know, he was in shape. At that time, it was the 90s. We were all working out on the street corner, getting in shape. And, you know, I had played football in high school, and he had a nickname, Diesel. This is before he was called Big Diesel. We used to just call him Yo Diesel or D or whatever. And we used to be in a rap group, and we performed in New York City. We performed one night at Nell's, and it was more of a hip hop rock kind of group.
I'm Curtis Blowin', I'm the king and I'm the best, y'all. And I'll tell you why, cause I'm fresh, y'all. From the north to south, east to west, y'all. Now I'll rock house parties in the b-boys dance, and never ever gave a sucker MC a chance.
I was in Washington Square Park at the time, and these two people, they were checking me out at the park. I moved away thinking I'm gonna get away from them. They came back over to me and then started talking to me, and they needed guys for videos and whatever. And to get $100 a day, that was cool to me, you know? I scheduled a meeting with Bethann Hardison, who her son was Kadeem Hardison.
They had seen my son on a TV show. Whenever he was on a talk show, he always spoke of me.
We made appointments with other agencies. Her appointment was the first one I went to.
And he got very lucky that the girl who had answered the phone accepted it, and then she met with him, and then because I wanted to support her, I agreed to meet him.
And then I totally just didn't go to the Fords, the Wilhelminas, because when I walked in there, I could smell the incense burning.
We were basically a black-owned white company. The black owner is Bethann Hardison. What makes it white is that you compete against your white counterparts.
They asked me to show them some pictures, and I really didn't have much. So I tested with a photographer, brought the slides to her. She looked at them. She said, well, you're very photogenic, and you've got great cheekbones. Maybe we can do something with you.
Bethann said, Veronica, I've got this boy, and he's got something, and he wants to ask you some questions.
I couldn't even hold a conversation with her.
Tyson was sitting at the table like this. Hi. How are you?
And I was hoping like, oh, she probably thinks I'm a doofus or I'm a dork or something.
I thought, wow, you know, I wonder if he really has the personality to be a model. He's so shy.
When I first got into the industry, I was very shy. I mean, I would go to castings and they would, you know, like for underwear, and they'd ask me to take off my clothes. I was like, here, in front of all these people?
Tyson didn't want to change in front of everybody else because, you know, Bethann taught him right.
Whatever the case may be, you want to try and get photographers and editors to appreciate the talent you take on.
Tyson made a transition into modeling by being really savvy. He watched how everybody else behaved because there wasn't an education for models really back then.
The city was alive with hip hop music. A lot of music videos were being shot all over Manhattan, and I started getting calls from people to do like local fashion shows. I remember a designer by the name of Carl Kanai and Cross Colors were doing a show, and you know, my buddy was like, yo, let's go to this casting. I want to do movies and TV stuff. So when I graduated high school, went back to New York, I started getting into that kind of world.
Tyson's next big break was when he came to the attention of my agency, Bethann Management. I'm his mentor, his agent to this day. But I admit I didn't see right away what would make Tyson a supermodel.
Tyson Beckford is an anomaly. He isn't something that will come along often. And there are people that come to Earth that won't be replaced. I think he's one of those people. I think that moment in time was a very special moment in time. I feel like that about a few people, but he is one of those people that's that. So the blessing was that he really actually was able to come along at a time that was just pertinent. And I'm happy that he You know, it was lucky that he was able to come to my agency also, because we were so small and we were so busy, and we didn't take people who just called up and wanted to come into the agency.
My relationship with Bethann is like no other. Like, I remember coming in there and feeling like, I don't think she saw that much in me. She saw a little bit, but I don't think she saw what I turned out to be. But she'll probably even tell you, it was like, she saw me, she's like, yeah, good looking kid. And didn't really think too much. Because we had it lined up to go see other agencies. But this one, I felt like when I walked in, there was a certain incense being burned, that the vibe was like, you know, she had art all over, like African art all over the place. It was an open, wide space, hardwood floor, white brick walls. And, you know, you saw the modeling section where you sit and wait to be seated was over here. And I just remember the smell, the look, the feel of walking in that agency for the very first time.
Tyson wasn't someone who wanted to model. He wasn't a guy it was his friends who believed that he should do it, or people who you know. And so that's how he came into the agency. And it was good because I had a good company, I had good kids, I have a great eye, I had great presentations, I did things very uniquely. And he came on and it just started. And within a year, you know, he was at the top of the mountain, which is unusual.
It was in Tribeca, 36 North Moore Street. So I was in there so much, I felt like I lived in that agency, you know. And Bethann would have her office up in the loft, and, you know, and she would look, and then all the bookers would be on the floor, and, you know, and she would yell sometimes, let me know when that little boy Tyson gets in here. And she would yell, and I'd be sitting downstairs. I'm like, little boy is here. And she would like, come on up. And then we'd have these long meetings about basically just strategizing, you know, where I need to be, my schedule. I think what makes Bethann such a unique human being is the fact that the love, the compassion, the understanding of people and the business. You know, that woman knows the business of fashion and probably all of entertainment too, just the amount of knowledge. I mean, she's a Renaissance woman. She lived life, you know. I mean, she done did it all. You gotta hear her story. She understands a complicated me. Not too many people can fully say they understand me. I'm a very complicated person, I feel like. You know, she just has a way with you. Just the way she talks to you, nurtures you, you know, shows you both sides of the fence. What would life be without her? I don't know. It's just different. The artist-management relationship that we had. I felt more like her son. She felt more like my mom at times. But, you know, she definitely guided me in the best direction she knew how, for us to have this kind of legacy.
It was 1991. Ralph Lauren and his team were at work on their next collection, which would debut the following spring. Polo was always inspired by the sporting life, but with this collection, athleticism came front and center, and a nod to the upcoming Summer Olympic Games in Barcelona. Ralph and his team researched and reimagined historical track and field iconography, vintage athlete uniforms, and glamorous images of 1930s Olympic posters to create a bold series of designs constructed with new athletic spirit. The result, the legendary Stadium Collection, brought together those influences in an all-new line, Polo Sport. According to Ralph's brother, Jerry Lauren, Polo Sport was as much a part of Ralph's American dream as anything else he's done in the prior quarter century. It was very much polo, he said, but it gave another dimension to polo. It was the idea of the Olympics, on the street, wherever you go. And it was this new polo sport campaign with the international fashion giant Ralph Lauren that catapulted Tyson's career all the way to global stardom in 1994. Tyson being the global face of polo sport, time for the Atlanta Olympics was the springboard that blasted him into the fashion world's superstar league. When Tyson debuted around the world in polo sport, it was a cultural phenomenon. It wasn't just the hottest model of the day being featured in a big new campaign, nor was it the same as casting a black rapper and dressing him up in nice clothes. Tommy Hilfiger tried that. It was much, much more. For starters, Tyson's body alone made him a specimen, all covered in Chinese dragon tattoos. Then there was his aquiline features, high cheekbones, strong lips, and intense gaze. But when you added Ralph's unique way of styling clothing, together with Bruce Weber's magical image making, it was simply an otherworldly kind of alchemy. Even in a tank top with a sweat towel on his head, Tyson looked regal, sophisticated, strong, and always just a little dangerous. It was as if we were seeing a new kind of mythic creature, like a centaur or a sphinx, not just another supermodel. An altogether new species, a never-before-seen manifestation of masculine perfection.
I do remember, seeing Tyson Beckford for the first time, and I actually photographed him with Bruce for American Vogue, and he was beautiful, really beautiful beyond imagination. And I always loved that he was one of the faces of Ralph Lauren, and I loved that someone that we did not consider, people think of Americans as, blonde, blue-eyed, with a lot of teeth, and here was this, African-American model who was so beautiful, but really epitomized what it was to be an American athletic man. Here's the thing I think about models of any race, of any, I think if they're beautiful, I think people just think they're beautiful. It doesn't matter. It kind of transcends everything. It transcends, age, race, weight, all of that. There's something, when you see it, you know it. Like you look at Tyson, he's beautiful beyond. You look at, someone like Kate Moss, there's no doubt that these are beautiful, Luwen, who's, a Chinese mom. They're so beautiful. There's no denying that they're that beautiful. You can't, so you got to take a picture of them, It has nothing to do with anything except for they're beautiful.
Tyson Beckford absolutely was one that came in just like fast and furious and incredible. An incredible look, and again, this untold story of a warrior, like complete warrior, and somebody you'd want to get to know, like you'd want to know their story. And I feel like this was this intrigue at that time, that there were people that were in the industry, you wanted to know more about them.
Well, Tyson just came in and he sort of took the fashion business by storm, and it was just great to see him there for Ralph Lauren and doing his thing so well, and for him to represent, black people in the fashion world. It was necessary, and diversity should be something that is considered. And I think up until that point, it wasn't a 50-50 game, and I don't know whether it is now, But he represented change and movement to the positive, turning the ship slowly but surely, and that's a good thing.
Tyson Beckford came on the scene, and it was, you know, it was an explosion. And you know, Ralph used him in Polo Sport, he used him in Ralph Lauren, he used him in Ralph Lauren Purple Label, Black Label, he became Ralph Sky. And he was also doing, you know, other lines, you know, in the streetwear community. He was doing Sean John and all these other collections, but instantly he rose to the top. He was someone who was, you know, hard to get, who probably had a big price tag on him, and he just looked phenomenal with the clothes. And very early on, I was lucky enough to do a shoot with him, and the idea was kind of the reimagining of the suit. Tyson Beckford was the model that I chose for that story because I knew that he would look ravishing in all of these different suits. And I remember we ran all over town. We started the shoot at Indochine in New York, and it was the first time I'd really had met him, and we had this great conversation. And I said, you know, the pictures that have been taken of you up till now have been super iconic and super heroic looking, and I certainly want that from you, but I'd love to see your range as well. And he's like, oh, I'd love to just, like, you know, hang out at the bar and make it look, you know, make it look real. So we did this combination of, you know, very simple pictures against the wallpaper at Indochine, but we also did these pictures that were quite lively in the street. So it was, he was able to give the range that a lot of the models, you know, attempted but maybe couldn't follow through with. You know, in those you could make Tyson look like the most elegant, you know, man in a three-piece suit, but you could also give him a, you know, you could also give him a skateboard, or you could have him dancing with a girl, or whatever it was that you wanted him to do. He would do it with elegance and grace, and you would always get the personality of Tyson coming through it. But he didn't overwhelm the clothes, but he really enhanced it. You really felt like if there was ever, even though we weren't doing models at that time, if there was ever a chance to put the model back on the cover of GQ, it would have been Tyson Beckford.
My first Polo Sport shoot in Squaw Valley, California with Bruce, I just remember thinking it was spring, so I figured, you know, I just heard California. I didn't quite grasp the concept that we're going to snow. It's hard to explain it. It's just, you had to be there. And it was always in some remote, exotic location. You just lived it. Having time to just run off and play on snowboards and snowmobiles and, you know, in between shooting. And it was like, when they were ready for you, it was like, you know, everyone's on a walkie. Bring Tyson, you know, bring Tyson. Bruce is ready for Tyson. A lot of times, that's why a lot of guys don't achieve the same success as me, because they're going about it following. Whereas I was a leader. I was one who kicked down doors. I was the front of the SWAT team. I was the captain of the SWAT team. You know, so if the captain went through the door first, you had no other choice but to follow him. You know. Once guys get that out of their mindset and say, okay, I can never be that man. I need to trailblaze my own path, you know, because I'm a trailblazer. I could name all who I've worked with. They're all trailblazers.
It was a big deal to have two people of color be in a worldwide ad campaign.
The Polo campaign, I think, really sort of helped push us right up to the mountaintop.
Ralph Lauren attributes Tyson's success to his all-American look with a dramatic edge. He conveys power, style, and intelligence in a very exciting way.
I remember walking to Ralph Lauren for the first time and being the only black guy there amongst a sea of white guys. You know, they had that look on their face like, yo, what is he doing here?
I think him hiring a African-American Jamaican descent to wear his clothes and they just gave me the freedom to, whenever I put it on, how does it make you feel? Do whatever it makes you feel. And I did that with the clothes. I mean, he put a USA sweatshirt on me, and
And I just stood there and I felt like, I felt like a champion. And it just, it came across the same way that I was living it is the same way you saw it, so it was amazing.
He was a much younger Ralph. I'd say it was about the mid-90s. I mean, I hadn't been under contract more than a year, so I'd say it was probably around 94, 95 or something like that, 1994, 95. And he just was so toned for his age. I mean, like, he still to this day has that same mindset of having great abs, being in shape, and, having his clothes fit him like a glove, so that to me was an inspiration. And I kept that thought in my head at all times. Anytime I was in the gym, I would, it was always like, I want to be like Ralph. I want to be like Ralph. You know what I mean? I want abs like Ralph. I want the success. I want to represent him, in the best quality that I could. And I always kept that in mind whenever I walked the street, whenever I put on something of his, whether I was, working out, whether I was just flying through the airport. I always kept that respect as far as holding my head high as a black man who worked for the #1 designer in the world, and it was what drove me, whenever I walk by a magazine stand and, pick up like a GQ, and I'd see myself in it, and I'd be like, wow, that's cool.
Tyson's not just a model, he's a role model.
The way the African-American community looked at me as an icon, as and I hate to use the word role model. In the beginning, I didn't look at any of those things. I didn't consider myself any of that.
The fact of it is that he began to influence a lot of people. People really began to look at him, and I'm not talking about people necessarily of the community or people of color, but people really literally could begin to sort of see that this young man was not only just good looking, but he had some sort of appeal.
For me at the time, I was a get money, hustler motherfucker. You know what I mean? The rent had to be paid. I had to eat, and I was tired of eating tuna out the can and ramen and eat, a head of lettuce or whatever it is I could get my hands on with what little bit of money I had. It was more of that for me. And as I began to accumulate jobs and money and, got more stable with life as far as, having money in the bank, having a roof over my head, having a place I could call my own home, it dawned on me that this thing was bigger than me. It was bigger than my survival, bigger than me being able to eat, bigger than me being a hustling motherfucker.
I think what I was trying to do with Ralph Lauren, this way it makes the most sense, is that I didn't want him to, I could see that he wasn't just a model anymore, that he was someone who could really be in front of the brand.
I was representing a people, whether they knew my background or not, that I had Panamanian blood, I had Chinese blood, I had Jamaican blood, I had, Portuguese blood and Spaniard blood. They didn't see that. What they saw was the brown image, the brown structure, cheekbones, the eyes, the lips. And it was more like I now had to take on this responsibility there, which was already on my shoulders before I even got there. It's like a suit that was already made for you. All you had to do was show up to the designer and put it on.
For me, when I heard that, I thought, well, maybe that's what they meant when they said, because I did say he's not just a model, he's an ambassador to the brand, but I didn't use the word ambassador back then. It was another spokesperson for the brand. Spokesperson for the brand.
And that's kind of like what it was for me, because I didn't want that responsibility. Fuck, man, I was scared of that shit, Because my problem was, I was scared, what if I fuck up? What if I make my people look bad? What if I do some tomfoolery, or what we would call in America, some Uncle Tom shit, And then there was, here I am working for one of the biggest, designers in the world, white designers, which was I Ivy League, waspy kind of brand that was designed for the rich and the elite.
And that's how I sold the idea of that deal that I made for Tyson with Ralph, is because I made such a good pitch of what made sense that Ralph just agreed, because it made sense. He was doing financially well having Tyson associated to the brand. And I knew it was unusual that we would do 1 year, 2 years. Now they wanted a third year. That was unheard of. Only Calvin Klein with Kate Moss had done 5 years. And here we were on 3. Kate hadn't done 5 yet. And then, we went into 4. Then we went into 5. That never happened ever with another model besides Kate Moss. And with Josie Bahrain, with Calvin Klein, 3 years. That's unusual, because with designers, when they associate an image to their brand, things move on, changes, yellow, long, short, frills, cotton, silk, things change. They can't have the same image. They have to change it. So this was a unique situation that we went from polo to being in the, Blue Label, to getting the polo fragrance. Yeah, it was great things that happened. I mean, and it was just me, and Tyson. No lawyers, nobody smarter than me, and there's so many more smarter people than me, and I'm negotiating these deals. But the genius thing about Tyson, too, with me, is that he would be this guy. When I was going to do that deal, I swore I'd never negotiate another deal again in life. It took my strength.
Then I said to myself, you know what? I've been wearing this brand since I was like a kid. Now it's quality clothes. It's an American iconic designer, and he's from the Bronx. Why the fuck don't I want to represent with him? So he's not my same skin color, but he understands, because his ethnic background is Jewish. So, I always say, and this is my personal opinion, I always say Jews are the black white people who had been persecuted, who had been enslaved, who had, been put in death chambers. So they relate to us and me as a black person, So I was like, this man is like me, but he's just of a lighter color, and he's giving me an opportunity and a life-changing experience that no one can take from me. No black designer could have taken me to that level.
Well, I think the idea that he really does have, everything is, what's a good expression for Tyson would be, everything that shines ain't gold. Just because it seems and it looks and it's wonderful for the moment, you just can't rub him the wrong way. He won't respond, gently. And if he thinks he thinks for a moment that you are disrespecting him in any kind of way, all those other little nice words that people would say to describe a very gentle lamb is gone. So that's the thing that I've experienced and watched, and and what I've always appreciated about him in the past too, when he was younger, is that he'd always want to come and tell me when he thought I was going to find out through the press or through other people. He'd come and tell me. He wanted to make sure I knew first. He wanted to get a heads up on it, like to make sure. So the complicated side is, I think, is because I've had to learn him and see it and go through a lot of hard times and watch things that weren't easy. But we stick together. Some way, somehow, we are meant to stay together. It's like a place of trust that he trusts me, And even when he goes into his head that maybe he can't trust nobody, in the end, he can trust this. But it's still, the complicated side of him. Even with girls, I used to say sometimes, I think the only person that you really could ever have a relationship with is me. Not me, because you say, you're the only one that understands me. I think if you were just younger, I probably would go out with you, you know, like this, because we basically, I'm his mama's son, you know. I mean, truthfully be told, because you have to deal with so many, I guess to say, irons of his fire. He's not a thug, but you really literally shouldn't fuck with Tyson. He's not, what you see, people sometimes get a little confused and they say, oh my God, Tyson, he's so sweet. And I always correct him. Sweet is Bethann Hardison, someone that is always the same all the time. That's sweet. Tyson is not what I would call sweet. Tyson is someone who basically is, like you described, all the good charms that you see, all the elements that you see is there. But I always try to remind people, especially when they're working with him, don't go asleep on him. Don't sleep on him. Because as soon as you start assuming something, you might see the tiger. You could just go the wrong way. You don't even know what you did. And there goes somebody else. When you talk about duality, you'll see the other guy. You're absolutely right about the sensitivity. He is sensitive, but he's no nonsense.
You know what it is? There's no blueprint for what I'm doing. I've been pretty much the one who, I co-manage myself, so I pretty much pick what I want to do, you know what I mean? If I'm not having fun, I don't want to do it no more, you know what I mean? And so I took a while off from modeling, I left, I went to the acting thing. I've got 2 movies that are really doing really well in the film festival right now. One just premiered last night in New York, so kind of burnt out from that, and then I flew in from Australia, and we're basically inventing everything that we're doing now.
Tyson made the transition from modeling gradually, first by appearing in music videos like Toni Braxton's Unbreak My Heart and Britney Spears' Toxic. He played Toni Braxton's love interest in the video for Unbreak My Heart, which saw him smoldering, semi-naked, broad shoulders, strong jaw, unfeasibly immaculate abs, with her in the pool, the shower.
I always wanted to act. I really wanted to show the world I wasn't just a pretty face. Modeling is just another form of acting without speaking. I love silent films. Charlie Chaplin was one of my favorites. Inside, I was always acting. I just looked at myself as an actor playing a supermodel.
VH1 ranked him 38th on the list of 40 hotties of the 90s. In 1995, he was named one of People magazine's 50 most beautiful in the world. He was named the Male Model of the Year by VH1 in 1995. VH1 Vogue Model Awards. And Tyson got nominated with those other 90s type, hip, beautiful male models. He gets nominated. I say, okay, Tyson, look, we're gonna go to this event. We're gonna go to this event. We're not gonna win. All right, let's just keep it going. Don't ask your mother to come. We're not bringing any extra people. We're not winning. We're going to be very gracious. When they say someone else's name, we just smile and we clap. Okay? I said, this is what I did. Ralph is going to have to dress him. He's going to have to take one of the models. He took the female model that was also big at Ralph at the time. And, well, they get up on the stage. There's Iman and Jean-Paul Gaultier. And the male model of the year, and they show male model of the year, and they show 1 pictures of this, and they give them a little that one, and they show the 5 guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm in the audience, but I'm sitting way in the back. It's good. And I could tell when Iman opened the card that it was Tyson because of the way her eyes looked, because she was so. And Tyson won. It was the most amazing thing. And people said, of course, his speech was great. He says he thanks me. And of course, everybody at that time said no one ever thanks anybody. That's their agent. Nobody does that.
But that was the first time anybody, and of course the whole audience knows who I am anyway, and all that I've been doing. And but just the idea, that it was just it was so simpatico, you know, the way it was. And when you talk about the 90s and thinking about that, and thinking what inroads he made into that world and how good he was at it and how he had to be included, and then to beat out the guys, I thought there's no way he's going to beat Mark Vandaloo. It's not a competition, but it sort of is, you know. So it was a very good time, and all of them thought, yeah, of course we expected him to win. That's what the guys that he was up against thought. I never thought that, you know, but that's us being so humble and me not wanting him. I don't like my talent to start expecting things. So I want to keep them not expecting, so if they do expect, you know, they don't fall to the ground. So that was very interesting. So I think the 90s was a very wonderful time in many ways. So many good things happened in it and during, and there were a lot of wonderful male models.
And the winner is, attention, Tyson Beckford.
I'd like to thank my mom and dad, my family, my agency, Bethann, she's in here somewhere. Ralph Lauren and the whole Ralph Lauren staff. Trying to remember everybody. Christine at my agency who helped me get to where I'm at today. Just everybody in the fashion industry who helped me get to where I'm at today. To all my homeboys out there, much love, baby.
When Tyson's name was called on the VH1 Awards in 1995, there was someone watching at home and making notes. It was Ben Stiller, the prolific writer, producer, actor, and director who would use this event as the catalyst for his over-the-top and hilarious parody on the male modeling industry, Zoolander.
It's a walk-off. It started out as a character that a friend of mine, Drake Sather, wrote for a bunch of little sketches for the VH1 Fashion Awards, and they did these little bits where it'd be like a male model, a photographer, and a publicist. And I said, "This is ridiculous. You want me to play a male model?" He said, "Yeah, that's what's funny about it." And then we tried to figure out what the character was, and he called him Derek Zoolander, and I just started sort of doing like a weird, like kind of Marilyn Monroe voice or something. I can turn left. And we just did it, and then we thought, okay, let's do a movie of this.
Yo, Derek, you're not a kid anymore. You can hurt yourself out there.
I can do this, Tyson.
I was always playing myself, which is one of the hardest things you can do.
Hansel, so hot right now.
The way Zoolander came about into my life was Ben Stiller reached out and was like, you know, we're doing this parody on, you know, male models and things of that nature. When he told me that, I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I done seen some funny shit go on. And yeah, some of these guys are dumb as a doornail. And yeah, that's gonna be fun. And he said, look, I want you to be in it, but I want you to play yourself. But no, at first, they wanted me to play one of the three guys that was at the gas station who had the gas station party and they were spurting each other.
Just because we have chiseled abs and stunning features, it doesn't mean that we too can't not die in a freak gasoline fight accident.
Then they said, no, man, he needs to be your walk-off coach. You know? So when I got the script, I read it, and I damn near laughed throughout the whole thing. It was funny. And when he told me who was in it, Owen Wilson and all these, you know, all these guys that I've had conversation with before any of this went down. So I remember I think it took about 5 days to a week to shoot that scene because it just was, you know, we had David Bowie in there, the late, great David Bowie. And I had known David before this through his wife, Iman. And, you know, it was so great to be in that room. And it was just, it's an old warehouse that we had mocked up into this, you know, to this place that was, you know, a little, maybe 30 minutes outside of upstate New York, outside of New York City.
Moisture is the essence of wetness, and wetness Darkness is the essence of beauty.
Zoolander was something that was very interesting. You know, Ben Stiller did this whole thing. He got even David to be in it, Bowie. You know, so I mean, it was kooky. But the truth of it is, to be able to talk to the girl and to get Tyson to be part of it was really great. And they wanted to make sure, I had to make sure that Tyson, you know, get a little bit more than, you know, just walking or being viewed or just, I wanted him to have a little bit of meat for the potatoes. And they were gracious to me for that. So it was really good in that sense. I think it's a cult film. It's a goof on things, but in the same time, we don't want to be associated like we're that person that is goofy, because the goofiness of what Ben Stiller does on playing on the play on the male model is no fun to anyone that's a male model. That's for sure. But for the parody, it's okay. You live and let live.
Tyson co-hosted the modeling contest, Make Me a Supermodel, on the television channel Bravo with fellow supermodel Nikki Taylor. Nicole Trunufo joined Tyson as a mentor to the model contestants for the show's second season. Tyson judged and mentored the contestants of the first few episodes of the Australian version of Make Me a Supermodel with model and former Miss Universe Jennifer Hawkins.
That's insane.
He was a guest judge on both America's Next Top Model and Project Runway. In 2003, he appeared on the ABC network celebrity reality game show, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and a judge with model Elle Macpherson in the British version of America's Next Top Model. As an actor, he has appeared in films like Into the Blue with Paul Walker and Jessica Alba.
Yeah. Let's go. She wasn't going to pay for it. Here, hold this.
He's someone who can act. So he can't, auditions are a very terrible thing that people have to go through. Everyone's not good at that. But he goes in the room and his personality and everything, I knew he could get the job. And then the guy asked him, could he do an accent? Lucky for us, he spent a lot of years growing up in Jamaica. And he was so good in the film.
Look at me when I'm talking to you.
He's got a gun! Go, 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 go!
Drift, The Sideways Craze, Zoolander, Addicted, Chocolate City, Biker Boys, Gas, Hotel California, and a few others. He recently did a cameo appearance in a new original sketch comedy series, Netflix Presents, The Characters. Since 1992, Tyson has appeared in more than 20 music videos. But alongside his guest appearances on television, Tyson has a vast catalog of acting credits.
I feel like I'm doing something, leaving a mark. There's no more barriers. We're knocking them down, and we're going to keep going. Respect.
It's part of being creative and part of like trying something new, because we got to a point where what we were doing was not being done before, you know? I always felt like I was an actor pretending to be a model, if that makes sense to you. Because I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't, I just did what was natural, what I would do. And they would always say to me, Bruce would say a lot of times, what would Tyson do? How would Tyson wear this? I always make sure every picture had confidence, that I looked confident, I looked like I'm really doing it, I always wanted, especially if I was like riding a mountain bike or they put me on the top of a mountain, I looked like I belonged there. I looked like I was that guy, And I think that's what made the consumer feel like, all right, I need to get this look. This guy looks so comfortable and he looks rugged and heroic. First off, I have to give credit where credit is due. Bruce Weber was wonderful to work with. He really was. I mean, this man would have me hold a pose for more than an hour sometimes. I'd have to say Stephen Meisel, Herb Ritz. Oh, Herb was one of my favorites. If it comes down to it, Herb was probably my favorite. Even though I didn't get to spend a long time working with him before his passing, it was just intriguing the little time that I spent with him and how genius and how he saw the black skin, because there's so many people that can shoot black skin and they're not even black, you know? Herb was one of them. Cliff Watts, Arnaldo Anaya, amazing. The Watsons, both father and son.
Tyson has worked extremely hard for his net worth today. He's also been extremely active in giving back to society and creating awareness for various causes he believes in.
Hello, Tyson! Thank you for so much for supporting Kick for Life.
Because of your support, we are able to have a bright future.
Tyson! 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 Tyson!
Next to acting, Tyson loves music, a passion he shares with his 20-year-old son, Jordan, from a relationship with stylist April Rumette. And motorsports, though for the moment he lacks sponsorship to race his drift cars.
Get your motor running, head out on the highway, looking for adventure.
Motorsports started when I was very young. I remember growing up in Jamaica and one of my mom's friends coming to the house on a motorcycle. It was a Honda CB, I believe it was a 750 at the time. And got on, my mom allowed me to get on the back, hold on, and go for a ride. And the experience of like sitting back there as a kid and just feeling the bike just maneuver like how it did. I fell in love with it. Like, I mean, like, I don't think I was more than 4, 5 years old, you know? And then like immediately I wanted a tricycle. My parents got me a tricycle, and, you know, I just always been on something, bicycle, bike, motorbike, everything. So as I got older, I got infatuated to want to go faster and faster, because I grew up doing the BMX thing. Then we started riding the local dirt bikes on the street and, you know, and off road. So I started doing that and just, you know, fell in love with race cars. And then the passion just kept growing and growing. Bethann calls me a petrol head. we're gonna be extinct soon, because, you know, it's gasoline is gone. So it's just like, you know, I got octane in my blood. I just love going fast, whether it was on a motorcycle or not. You know, I've put myself in some places that, you know, I'm lucky to be alive. You know, I had a bad motorcycle accident early in my career around, I say around 90, 95. And then I had a car accident in 2004. So yeah, I had my close calls. I don't think there'll be any more close calls for sure. I'm not, you know. I was friends with Paul Walker, and to see how Paul went out, I was just like, you know, I swore to myself, I'm not going to do my friends and family like that. No way. So I started behaving, and so now what I do is I go to racetracks, and I put on you know, all the gear, all the stuff, and I'll race motorcycles, or I'll race cars. You know, it's just something just to blow off steam for me now. Yeah, I'm still passionate about it, and like people know me for it, for like, you know, music videos and, you know, any movie that I can sneak a motorcycle in. Oh yeah, I do it. You know, any TV show I can sneak a motorcycle in, or a car or something cool, I try to, because I think it's part of who I am. It's part of my character. It's part of the person I've become.
Tyson is a ready-made John Wick style action hero lead. An experienced dramatic actor, he comes ready, built with a Marvel superhero physique and vast amounts of military-level weapons training. He's a skilled daredevil. as proficient on motorbikes as he is in high-performance race cars. Not everyone knows this. Modeling was never Tyson's dream. It was simply a means to help him with his true dream, which is film and the movies.
Like shit? What are you gonna do about it?
You know what? Fuck you, and I'm the fuck out of here. Deep down in my heart was the passion of acting. The stepping stone was modeling. Because a lot of people don't know, I was an actor before I was a model. So I basically put what was the beginning of a little acting career on the shelf, just so I could make some money modeling, you know? There was no intention of, oh man, I'm gonna be a supermodel, I'm gonna do this. No, it was just like, I need to make some money. And when I do things, I try to be the best damn person that ever did it. So that's what happened with me in the fashion, you know? I became the best damn model that ever did it, you know? And many might dispute it and say this person's bigger or whatever, but you know, I know what I did. You know, I know how I changed it for a whole demographics of people. I know what door I opened up, whether, you know, these kids want to say I'm relevant or not. I don't really care what you say. I know what I did historically. Now that I've started writing more and kind of throwing some fiction and some nonfiction into a script, you know, because some of the things that I'm writing about now and doing for this piece called Throttle is it's taken from my own life adventures, you know, times when I got into places that I shouldn't have been, shootouts and things like that. So I can now kind of write about them partially, because I won't, you know, of course, put too much detail in any of these things, but you know, it's fun to really like see that now, because it's almost like my days of being a model, I was training for something bigger, you know, and I always felt that. What life has taught me about being a parent is there's material love, there's physical love, there's love for a lover, but your love for your child that is a part of you, that's come out of you, is just like, it's unbelievable, man. I wish I was able to have found a great woman to make many more kids. You know, that was always my dream to, you know, I grew up in a house full of kids, so I wanted the same thing. You know, I wanted my kids to grow up with brothers and sisters and siblings, other people that they could depend on. You know, even to this day, my son is like, Dad, we having another one? What are we doing? And I'm just like, I'm kind of too old now. You gonna help me? You gonna help me change diapers? You know, walk this kid? And he was just, you know, my son is always, he loves kids. He loves his little cousins and his and stuff. So I would love to make him happy and bring him some more siblings, because I think he deserves it. He's such a great kid. I mean, he's a single child, but he has that, I can see he has that older brother in him, you know, so it's not too late, you know, hopefully I can still do it.
Tyson is aware of the role he has played in paving the path for other men of color in the industry. He once went so far as turning down the chance at walking the Milan fashion show as a result of being the only African-American man invited from the United States.
It's different when it's white, you know? It's different when it's white, because we obviously see that there's a big racial problem in America, and in the world too, not just America, but in the world. But we as America kind of set this example for the world. You know, we introduced rap music to you. We introduced you to what the word cancel culture meant, because you didn't know what the fuck that meant. You didn't know, but it was something that we had already been saying for, you know, years before it became mainstream. You turn on CNN, now they're like, yeah, well, the Republicans say they're not canceling culture, and you know, and it's just things that you have stolen from us, that you continuously steal from us, and you continuously grow off of it. Where is it? You put us in a position where we can't grow. You know, you try to not educate us. We find a way to get educated. We find a way to make it. And you still have your foot on our necks and still, you know, mistreat us. A lot of the charities I've been involved with in my career just are from, you know, hanging out with different people, going places, going to a charity event that someone will say, hey, would you like to get involved with St. Jude's for Children? I love things like that, especially like St. Jude's and like anything to do with children. I've always been supportive of cancer, cancer research, cancer awareness, HIV, AIDS, famine, the mistreatment of people, you know, what was happening in the Sudan, what was happening in, you know, China. It just, anything and everything that I can get my hands with. The list is long. I mean, Kick for Life, where, you know, we teach kids about soccer, we educate them about sex education and being safe sexually when you're having sex and wearing a condom. And it's just different things. Gay men's health crisis in New York City, where we looked out and, you know, helped men who were going through it and who had HIV and they needed like home food delivery service. You know, God's Love We Deliver was one of the charities in New York that I got involved with Ralph Lauren. And I still am part of it today, even though I'm not in New York City. If they call on me, I'm always there for them.
In the December of 2005, Tyson showed his support for the gay men's health crisis at the Move Against AIDS Dance-a-thon. Tyson participated in a risque photo shoot in the July 2013 issue of British Cosmopolitan to raise awareness of male cancer for Cancer Research UK. Tyson does a vast amount of work for charity and is a tireless champion for underprivileged Black youth. He does regular prison and school visits to help be a role model for troubled urban males.
I've done lots of school visits where I go and talk to the kids about careers and life and career day and just, you know, being an African-American success or basically just being able to carry yourself around the police and be able to, you know, make it home safe. You know, that's why I tell the kids. It's something that I do on my own time. Nobody's paying me to do it. I just do it because I remember when people came to our school when I was growing up, it was cool. It was never anybody of my complexion or anything that I was into. So I think it's a treat now for these young people to get that when someone like myself comes back, you know, to a school to give them knowledge, to talk to them, because, you know, you get a lot of people who don't have that time to do that. But, you know, I know how inspirational it is. If I get one or two kids to want to grow up to be actors or models, you know, it was cool. I did something good, you know. I might have saved that kid from a life of a 9-to-5 or whatever it may be, you know. But I think it's very inspiring that we go back to the community and give back, you know. And I'm not even from this community, but I still like to give back to Southern Florida, you know, and I've been doing it on and off for as far as I can remember. I've done prison programs where I've gone and talked to guys in prison and try to give them hope, try to give them something to live for. And, you know, I don't necessarily do the high violent prison programs. I do the lesser, the misdemeanors and the, you know, the one strike guys, whereas they're easier to talk to and they have a chance, they have a second chance to go to the good side and clean their act up. And, you know, a lot of the guys have come out of prison and doing really well. So it's kind of good to see that. And once I start getting shows sold to Hollywood, I can then give some of these guys a job, a program, get them on set, get them to be able to learn the trade, whether it's a grip, running electrical, running lights, you know, camera, you know, whatever it is. We can teach them something and give them a career, you know, that possibly can help feed their family and better the community. I think that's a lot of times what we are lacking. You know, we don't administer a trade that can give people jobs. Instead, we want to give that person a slice of bread. But if you teach that person how to bake the bread, you no longer need to give them a slice of bread every day. Or the old saying of, you teach a man you can give a man a fish every day, but if you teach that man how to fish, he then can provide, and he can provide for himself or the community he lives in. When my life is over and I'm not here no longer, I just want to be remembered for all the good, you know, all the positive things that I brought, opening the doors for men of color, and just, you know, I want to leave a legacy that my son and my grandkids would be proud of. You know, like, my grandfather did this, my grandfather did that kind of legacy. You know, it's whether it's just amongst the family, that's fine with me, or it's amongst a community of you know, actors, models, whoever it may be. You always want to leave a positive legacy of good that you did. You know, and I think my whole life I've kind of been the hero for myself and for people in my community, and I think for my family and my nieces and my nephews. You know, so it's always consistently trying to be the hero, the unsung hero.
While Tyson may now be semi-retired from the modeling world, he is far from finished with acting, writing, and producing, and has many exciting projects in the works.
Let it surprise you.
There's still a lot of fire and fight in this dog, and I'm happy to report there are many new chapters of his story yet to be told.
In episode 4 of our 7-part series, we travel to the land of ice and snow to meet the original male supermodel Swede, Marcus Schenkenberg.
Marcus embodied like a complete Adonis. Marcus's physicality is as perfection as we get with the male species.
It was almost like a ballet dancer, his body. The proportions were magnificent.
Long legs and a broad shoulder and a smaller waist.